everyone, coming to you again with another Classic Movie Monday, and today is actually going to be, before I start talking about this particular film that I'm going to talk about today, which is Planet of the Apes, I just wanted to briefly address that this will be my last week making videos, because school is coming up for me soon and I need to prepare for that, and I kind of want the last week to just kind of relax and sink all whatever has happened over the summer to wash over me, and I feel like making videos would probably get in the way of that. So this is going to be my last week making making these videos, but what I will try to do is I do have a winter vacation that comes up in December, and I was thinking during that point, when that point comes, that's when I can start making these videos again, and I might switch it up a bit. I might change like orders and maybe change things that I'm going to talk about, but I think I'm going to stick to sort of this formula that I have because I think it works for the most part. Basically, this is just to tell you that this is going to be the last week for a while, because I'm going to have school I'm going to have school, and school is going to get into the way of a lot, and I have two, well, one's technically sort of a job and another is an internship. I have those to deal with, and it's going to be a really busy semester. I'm not going to have time to sit and make videos. It's not gonna, I'm just not gonna be able to do it, and I can't just sit down and watch like a 3 to 2 hour film each day, or because it's just not, it wouldn't come out, I think, in the same way as if I have summer and I have time and I can take things slowly. So this is just a brief discussion before I talk about this film, that this is going to be my last week, but I will try to come back actually Christmas Eve of December, because that's actually a Monday, December 24th this year, and I thought it'd be nice to start off that way again, like start with starting the week, and then sort of having the week end, and not have to make video segments that are like halfway through a week. So I think I'm going to end up doing that, and I don't think doing it on New Year's Eve, and a video on New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day would really be a problem for me personally. I think it will be fairly easy for me to do, but yeah, but any time there in between, from after this week to all the way to December 24th is when you will probably not hear any more videos coming from me, because I just don't have the time to do it. I don't have the energy to do it, but I will be doing this whole week, and I'm going to try to make it as interesting as I possibly can and pick some good stuff. And I thought, why not start with the 1968 original version of Planet of the Apes. So let me briefly discuss a little bit Planet of the Apes. Okay, we have an interesting thing going on with Planet of the Apes, because there was once like a remake, I believe, that came out in like the early 2000s, and then we had sort of a I want to say it was like somewhat a prequel to Planet of the Apes. I'm not really sure exactly how they classify it. I believe it was let me see here. It was, I guess they count it as they count the 2001 version as a reboot, and then they count the 2011 version as like a remake, which is rather strange, because I think the newer version is focusing on different things and a different time, but again, I think that's fairly open to interpretation. But I'm just going to talk about the 1968 version, which is really a classic in my opinion, because everybody seems to really know about Planet of the Apes. It really, I think, helped the sci-fi genre kind of launch itself and see what they can do creatively. And I think what makes Planet of the Apes so unique is just the whole concepts that they bring up. And how we haven't really seen this kind of stuff before in how they make this kind of a reversal kind of a world. And you'll kind of see what I mean as I'm sort of explaining the plot. But basically what happens in the beginning of this plot is that some astronauts, our lead protagonist, who's sort of like the leader, played by Charlton Heston, whose character's name is George Taylor, and basically he and these other astronauts sort of go on this expedition, and they land on this planet after being in like I guess they call it hypersleep, or I think it's shown that George Taylor, the character, he's actually talking to, I think, like a recorder on the ship, and everybody else all the other crew members are asleep, but he talks, and then he I think takes like a drug, so he'll be able to go to sleep. And the whole idea is that they can sleep, and then they'll just, because the expedition will take so long, they figure it's best if they stay asleep for a majority of the way there. So that's kind of the whole sort of introduction that you get. The other crew members, although they do play somewhat of a role, they're not really so much exposed, because for the most part it is focused on George Taylor and sort of kind of his journey into this kind of a world. But basically they end up landing on this planet, and it looks a lot like Earth's planet, and it has water and desert, and basically the crew decides to just say, okay, we're on this planet now, let's just go look around. And then they discover this whole world is actually kind of run by apes. Like, apes are the superior species. Apes are like humans, pretty much. And the humans are like the apes. And that's why I think this whole idea is just so creative and so cool. This whole idea of this kind of reversal of evolution. This whole concept of how it's humans, instead of apes later evolving into humans, it's humans later being evolved to apes, and therefore apes being the more intellectual and more reasoned species compared to humans, who are fairly mute, and don't have the capability of writing or speech. So you'll kind of see this reversal. And what ends up happening is that they kind of use humans as sort of, I guess you could classify it as sort of slavery in a way, but I think it's sort of like how we look at apes, because they put them in cages, the humans in cages, apes put the humans in cages, and our main protagonist, George Taylor, becomes one of those humans to be put into cages, and basically the apes practically sort of run how things work. And the funny thing is that George Taylor, him being a more advanced human, is capable of very intelligent ways of thinking, similar to the very intelligent like apes. And you'll see how he writes. He does a lot of writing, and some of these apes are actually technically scientists. Yes, there's ape scientists in this movie. One is played by Roddy McDowell, and he plays Cornelius. And I'm supposing that this is his wife, Kim Hunter, who plays Zira. So we got Cornelius and Zira, who are kind of really the kind of good apes, so to speak, because they kind of see George Taylor's intelligence, and they kind of are, since they're scientists, they're really concerned about the truth, and they want to figure out more about humans, and they want to really study them and study their surroundings and really get a sense of humans. And they seem to be a lot more gentler towards George Taylor and humans than the other apes. And you'll see how there's kind of different apes. Like there's like a orangutan, and then you have just all these different kinds of apes, which is also interesting to see, and how they kind of pick their clothing too, because again, these apes pretty much act like humans, so they wear like clothing, except they just have ape faces and ape bodies, but they can still like I think they can like they can stand up on their feet. It's just sometimes I think they look a little bit more hunched over, which is rather interesting, I thought. And basically they kind of want to know more about George Taylor, and they find that they think that he's sort of this kind of like missing link, so to speak, and between sort of the chain of humans later evolving into apes. So they kind of just are very curious about him, and they like the potential that he gives their work, their scientific work. So they really want to make sure that he can be used by them in order to benefit their future race, which is, I guess, really what these two really want in the end. But there's also some other apes, in particular, and sort of, I guess you could classify him as our antagonist here, who's played by Maurice Evans, and this ape is a little bit different from Cornelius and Zira, and his name is Dr. Zaus, Z-A-I-U-S, and basically he's kind of a and you also really see how interesting this because they really try to kind of push the evolution theory on you. They try to put up this whole point of like how the apes have their own kind of religion, like, and how they like look at scrolls and stuff, and they think these scrolls like are true, and they think that that's really the order of their species, and that's what makes them inferior to humans. That's sort of that argument, and that idea, and that's what really this Dr. Zaus is pushing, because he kind of believes that, you know, humans are evil. And you'll even hear, like, he says I think it is to Cornelius, or one of the apes, he tells them to take out my scroll and read the scroll and see what it says. And basically it just says like that humans are bad, and you know, they do horrible things, so they're evil. And it's kind of interesting how you see this kind of more religious side, because you will see at one point in the scene where George Taylor is trying to run away, there is like this big giant like gorilla statue, and basically there's the they're having sort of I guess you could call it a service where there is this ape figure who's telling all these other apes about this one gorilla, and how this one gorilla is kind of like it is kind of like somebody that they look to fairly highly, almost in a way like a god or something. And I find that to be fairly interesting, because the evolution theory, I think, has a lot of weight when it comes to the whole religious debate, and I don't really want to get into that, but it's there in this film. So that's maybe why some people may not like it that much. But I feel like those elements are there because of like our own history, and how it sort of repeats itself in this case, because again they end up way in the future on this planet, and you'll kind of see how everything sort of reveals itself. And I would say that this film doesn't really have the most uplifting or optimistic ending, so don't expect like all shiny, happy fairy tale ending like something like Disney. You're not going to get that from this film, but it is a good ending, I think, to a really good like classic, even though the ending at first I was like, what? How does that make sense? And then I literally looked it up and it offered that small explanation, and then I went, oh yeah, that totally makes sense now. And yeah, a lot of what is presented in this film, it does conclude, and it tries to wrap things up, but it's probably not the most optimistic ending. Let's just say that. And that's maybe what some people might take issue with, is that it's not that uplifting, it's not that inspirational type-esque ending. And this film, I think, is fairly different from movies that I've already done, where they're sort of more uplifting and they like to be these grand things, and instead of focusing on an ending that's maybe just more of telling you sort of reality and not trying to sugarcoat things. And I think the ending doesn't try to sugarcoat it. I think it just tries to give you, yeah, that's how it is. You know, you kind of have to accept it. Otherwise, you know, you're not accepting truth. And I think the whole point of this film too is to sort of emphasize what truly happened, and how sort of the antagonists are kind of trying to cover up that truth, because that's how they want their world to sort of function, and they don't like the whole idea of that world being sort of changed, and you'll kind of see that through Dr. Zaius's character. And I think even George Taylor asked, like, why do you don't like me? Like, what's your reasoning behind that? And yeah, I think it's kind of like trying to bring these kinds of points around to you, of how evolution was a very wow topic, especially especially even probably during the time this film was made, and how sometimes how sometimes the truth is very important when it comes to this whole idea of evolution, and in this case being the reverse evolution, where the humans later turn into apes. So it's kind of that idea. But I find it interesting because I don't think a lot of scientific movies really do touch on evolution. It seems like nobody likes to talk about evolution. It seems like no one likes to bring it up, I guess, for whatever reasons. But for me, I think this film does a good job of presenting this kind of a world. I believe it has one for like the makeup and stuff, and even for that time, I could tell at points when the mouth movements were just kind of awkward and off, but for the most part, I could get a sense that there was a lot of effort, I think, on the people who were filming it to make it as believable as they could for the time period. And I think a lot of people just remember this film for these kinds of concepts that they bring up. Also, what's really cool about this film is that actually it's within the vicinity of where I live. It's not in my town at all where they filmed it, but it's around the area. It's within driving range for me to go, and me and my family we go there sometimes where they film certain parts of this film, and I thought that was cool. That was nice to see. But I think it does try to keep you guessing, and it's very engaging for the most part. For an older type-ish film where sometimes these things go so slow, like this one knew how to keep you engaged. I felt like really engaged for the most part because it didn't try to drag things. It didn't try to, make everything so I think they do try to do points where they do try to give you a sense of the landscape and stuff, but I didn't feel like it was so much as some of the other films that I've seen. And I like how it wasn't so long. I liked how it wasn't so long to the point of like where I'm going, okay, let's kind of wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. I know where you're getting at, I think it did a good job of time-wise for an older film. And I thought all of the characters were really well done. I don't think the characters are in particular so like really fascinating or interesting, but I think the passion that Zira has in the film, as well as Cornelius to a certain extent, but I think Zira is the one who kind of stands out in being the person who's very open to hear George Taylor out and to kind of be sort of his kind of support system when all the other apes are kind of like, we should silence him, he shouldn't be allowed to do any of that stuff because he's a human and humans are inferior, So it's that whole idea, and she's kind of like, no, don't hurt him, she's really she really does seem to care about humans in this way, which is rather interesting since she's an ape. But it's this kind of reversal of evolution and stuff might actually make some people laugh, especially people from my generation. I think we would look at this and we would kind of laugh at points, just at how kind of absurd certain things are. Like apes wearing clothing and apes walking around and apes talking, and it just may come off as awkward, and then apes worshipping like this gorilla statue and we just like, I just think people of today would just look at that stuff and just kind of laugh at how silly it all sounds, and to how some of the stuff that they do have is just so odd. But I think for a science fiction movie, this does work in being odd. But I think for the most part, everything is fairly answered. I don't think it's like 2001: Space Odyssey or something like that, where it's like it doesn't there's so many questions and stuff. I think there's some questions that you could still ask from this film, but I think it does a good job in explaining like the main point of it, and just wrapping it up in that way. And I think it's a really cool sci-fi movie, and it's also funny you'll see apes riding horses, which is kind of funny. That was funny for me to watch, apes holding guns. That was just funny and weird. But it's kind of one of those funny reversal evolution type-ish movies, and we don't really see this reverse evolution type-ish concept. And this is why I think I hold this to be a classic, because it's taking something that's never been done before, and it's doing it in a clever and a productive way, and I think this film is doing that. But without giving too much of the plot away, I think that's really all you need to know kind of going into it, is that there's these concepts of evolution, and you'll see how George Taylor is sort of treated like an ape, even though he's a human, and that you're just getting into this sort of reversal world, and then you'll kind of see how Zira and sort of Cornelius try to use George Taylor, and how they kind of use each other in order to help figure out the truth and tell people really this is how it is. And you'll kind of see how the antagonist tries to stop this truth sort of from being revealed, Dr. Zaius. But really, that's really all I can say about going into it. If you are interested from anything I've said, it's basically a reverse evolutional take on, and it's done in a sort of a scientific, or a science fictional way, in a way that's science fiction. And yeah, I think that's really all I can say about it. Any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. And it's kind of sad this is going to be the last week, but yeah, there's really nothing I can do about that. But I'm really happy at how it's going so far. But until next time, everybody, bye-bye.